Recall that the ultimate goal of the entire financial system is to create wealth. This means that after all said and done, every participant investing aims to make money or grow their wealth. For this ultimate goal to be realized, a primary function of money or capital allocation necessarily has to occur. The more efficiently this primary function of capital allocation occurs, the faster will wealth be created. Now, let's take a first look at how funds are allocated or flow through the financial system. It starts with the lenders or savers who have saved more money than they have to spend now. On the other end are the borrowers or spenders who generally spend more money now than they earn now, which means that they have to borrow from the savers. The lenders as investors generally expect to receive in the future more money in return than they have given out. Both lenders and borrowers can be individuals. They could be firms or businesses, governments, or foreigners. The flow of funds happen in two ways: directly, in what is known as direct financing, and indirectly, known as indirect financing. In the direct financing method, the borrowers and lenders deal directly with each other in the financial market, and the form of the financial security or asset does not change as a result of the transaction. For example, let's suppose that the car manufacturing company Tesla Motors wants to build a new factory that would cost a whopping $100 million. So, it decides to borrow the money from a group of very wealthy individuals that have shown strong interest in lending the money to Tesla for 10 years with a relatively low and attractive interest rate of 3% annually. Perhaps because they believe in Elon Musk's vision of clean and electric-powered transport as being the future of human transportation, and also the impressive execution of the Tesla team. So, they strike a deal. Tesla issues a 10-year bond to the private investor group, and then in return receives the $100 million to finance the construction of the car factory. Such direct private transaction is called a private placement. Specifically, in this case, a private bond placement. For the use of the borrowed money, Tesla pays the bondholders interest annually because the bond, which is essentially debt, is a liability. But for the wealthy individuals, the bond is an asset that pays interest to them. In the indirect financing method, the savers and borrowers do not deal directly with each other, but they do so with a financial intermediary or institution that acts as a middleman. Also, there occurs the transformation of the initial security or asset as it goes through the intermediary. Now, to illustrate this, let's suppose that an individual, Mr. A, deposits $100,000 as a savings investment in a commercial bank, let's call it A to Z Bank, and is then issued a certificate of deposit with a term or maturity of 1 year and a fixed annual interest rate of 3%. Now this means that Mr. A has to leave the money with the bank for 1 year without withdrawal. But at the end of 1 year, he gets the initial $100,000 known as the principal and the interest of $3,000, which is 3% of $100,000. Next, the commercial bank pools Mr. A's savings investment and those of other investors, effectively accumulating a large sum of money that it then uses to make its own investments by buying stocks and bonds of companies or making loans to individuals and small businesses who want to borrow. For A to Z Bank, Mr. A's savings and those of other investors or savers like Mr. A are a liability, since the principal and interest must eventually be paid back by the bank. But on the other hand, when the bank makes investments, using that pooled money, the investments become assets to the bank. Now, observe that the initial financial security, in this case the certificate of deposit, has been transformed by the intermediary to other securities like the stocks and bonds and loans the bank actually creates or invests in. But you may wonder now, why do the borrowers and lenders even need the financial intermediary or middleman? And there are two key reasons. The first has to do with the cost of finding a counterparty, that is the borrower or the lender. The issue here is that the time and effort it would take an individual or small business to find a willing private lender offering attractive lending terms will just be too much and discouraging. But for the financial intermediary already working with many savers and borrowers, this time and effort would be much less. The second has to do with the cost of transacting with a counterparty. The level of interest rate, the administrative and the legal fees, and even other fees that would be necessary, to bring the transaction successfully to a close can be very, very huge in total, thereby making it very costly, and discouraging for the borrowing business or individual. But for the financial intermediary already working with numerous savers and borrowers, this cost is easily much less, since the cost can be spread across many participants. Now, such cost advantage due to the large number of participants, working with the intermediary, is what is known as the economies of scale. The above reasons give us one key insight, and that is the role of information in the financial system. This is going to be the focus of our next lecture.